It's another LED USB lights upgrade video, I'm afraid. I blame Dan Trudgeon for this. He did a rather good video a little while ago on how to upgrade your dimmable LED lights in his Caravan. So I'll put some links up here for Dan's video. I'd watch that as well. There's some good tips in there, and I picked up a few myself. Also, another good video was from Carefree Caravanning. Again, links up here. He did a very good video on upgrading his his LED lights to USB LED lights, and he faced a couple of issues as well. I've got my own video which I'll talk you through in a minute and explain what I did, but also our friends Glyn and Bob have also upgraded their LED lights to LED USB lights. I'll get the hang of this in a minute, and I've got a little bit of their videos as well, so you can see what they did, and hopefully by the end of that you'll know what to do. So let's have a look at the video. So the first thing is take the fuse out, or at least switch the 12 volts off. I did a little trial before I fitted them, so I undid the existing LED lights just to see what it all looked like. It gives you a chance also to figure out if it's going to fit. Certainly with some of the other sort of Caravan lights, they've got a much bigger base, so you need to be careful where they're going to fit. Now the next thing, once you've got the lights off, is how much slack, and this is key. How much slack have you got on this cable? I found that I had a lot of slack, and the tricky bit here for me was actually just pulling these connectors out, and it's only a little hole that they provided, and eventually just wiggling them carefully, they come out. What you've got to be careful of is you don't disconnect the connectors, because if you do that, they're going to disappear inside the trunk in there. Now Dan Trudgeon had a little tip, and if these connectors are fairly tight, you don't really want them springing back in. So he said tie a bit of cable tie around it, so at least you've got something to grab if it does actually spring back in. But I didn't need to do that. As you can see, I've got loads of slack on the cable, so a little bit tugging and the spade connectors come off. There you go, they're off. So now we're over at Glyn's, and what Glyn was having to do was to try and make the hole bigger so he could get to the spade connectors. So he was cutting away with a pair of cutters and a sharp knife to try and make the hole bigger and see if he could get to the spade connectors. I then, once I'd done a little trial test, I then went on to undo my lights, and this is the other side. Same sort of thing, undo the screws and just gently pull the wire through, and as you'll see, once I got the connectors out, again that's the fiddly bit, just wiggling them out. There they come. Well, this time I'd resorted to putting a head torch on. There they come, and look what I got, loads of wire. So back at Bob's, he's got a completely different type of connector, and those are the LEs. They're round with the round base, and these lights are sort of square. But what Bob's trouble was that he couldn't actually get to the connectors at all, so he cut a bit out of the inside of the cupboard to try and get to the connectors, which he did eventually, of course. So back at ours, with my great big long lead, putting the fuse back in. Just make sure it works before you install it. Yep, it works. I probably should have also plugged a USB connection in there as well, just to make sure. And then you can feed the wire back in, all of the wire, about 3 foot of it. No, I think it's probably more than that. And then sort of snuggle the connectors in through the little hole. In they go. And the next trick then is to screw, it's got like a base plate on it, so you take that off, and the screws, fortunately for this, actually match the original screw holes. So then it was just a case of getting them to line up And now see, I'm using the shorter screws that were provided with the new LEDs rather than the great big long screws that I don't need because you're not screwing through the base plate. So this was a bit of a tricky bit here, and I couldn't get the thing started. It's actually really difficult trying to film this yourself and do the screws up. So I was wearing my Hero 5 Session on my head, so if the footage is a little bit wobbly, sorry about that. So once you've got them in so they're starting to bite, what you really need to do is to feed the slack back into the hole. I had a little bit too much slack there, but once I pulled it back in, tighten them up. There we go, tighten them up, and then if you coil it round a little bit and then you push it, and it's a push on and twist connection. Again, it's a little bit tricky to get it started. Once it's on there, it's not coming off. And that's it. That was basically it. For me, it was fairly straightforward. I can charge my phone up now in the bedroom. Really handy. Yep, just about to see it says battery charging. Very good. And meanwhile, back at Glyn's suddenly discovered that he didn't need to make the hole. He was tugging away at this blooming hole, trying to get the spade connectors out. And then what he found, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it, really? What he found, there was a load of slack in the cupboard on the wiring. So once he'd found he could release some of the slack, he could push that through, and lo and behold, you can get to the connectors. There they are. There's the connectors. So it's a really good idea to actually do a little trial run, just see what sort of lead you've got in there. And there we are, and you just put the wiring back in the trunking. That's Bob's LEDs fitted, so he'd covered up the hole that he made with a bit of Fablon, and it's a little bit of a hole underneath which you can't really see because he's covered it with Fablon, and the Glyn's fitted as well. So that's it for this little video. There's some top tips here. Check that the new lights cover the hole that's left by the old lights. Check that you can get to the spade connectors on the LEDs, and if you can't, you can always put some new connectors on the old wiring. So where you can see the wires, put some connectors on there, or indeed you could solder, if you're good with a soldering iron, solder your wiring directly onto there. So that's it for this video. Remember to give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notifications icon so you get updates when I release a new video. So we'll see you soon.